That's where a lot of my creative triggers take place, is when I'm physically involved with something, but mentally detached from that task and just sort of thoughtfully floating to whatever, idea I want to dwell with for a moment. And it makes the menial tasks, it gives them a purpose that I get some value from. So I don't know what more I could ask for. I guess I'll go out and pick up some more trash.
Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who's out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode.
Hey, welcome to The Exploding Human. My name is Bob Nickman. My guest today is author Branch Isole, and we're going to be talking about frameworks to support career, personal, and spiritual growth. But first, I'd like to invite you to visit my website, theexplodinghuman.com. Over there, you can listen to episodes, read synopses, see photos of my guests, little bio on myself. There's a donate button if you'd like to support the show through Patreon. Thank you very much. There is also a YouTube channel, The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman, and The Exploding Human Facebook page. As I said, my guest today is Branch Isole. He is an author who has written over 22 books, and we're going to be talking about all kinds of things in terms of relationships. What are the 7 steps of relationship repair? We also talk about the power of folding laundry. I'm not kidding. So please listen in. This is Branch Isole.
Good morning, Bob. Thanks for having me on. I've been looking forward to our time together.
Yeah, me too. And you're in Arkansas, but you are not a good old boy.
Both of those facts are true.
What's that like there? I mean, because I know there's all kinds of people everywhere, but when I think of the South, I think of that sort of good old boy mentality. And
life is definitely slower in this part of the country, and in particular, Arkansas. It's called the natural state, and it truly is a beautiful environment. It's got a lot going for it, but in order to have that balance, you have to have the detractions as well. But it works for us. When we decided to retire and move here, we would tell people in our business that we were leaving and we're going to Arkansas, and they'd look at us like we had a third eye. And they'd say, Arkansas, huh? Where is that? Is that where your people are from? And so right then I knew that it was a well-kept secret or something that was to be hidden. But it's a beautiful state, and clean air, clean water, clean land, low density, and it works for us.
I'm over here in Los Angeles, and it's none of those things except, well, it is beautiful and the weather's great, but it's not, it's densely populated, and there's a lot of nonsense that goes on too. So I guess,
there's nonsense that goes on here as well. So that's pretty universal.
Yeah, you got to live somewhere. You might as well just pick something, and then you're there anyway. Whether you're here or there, you're still in both places, wherever you are, and then that's what you got to deal with, and that's probably what we're going to talk about today.
Great. Well, let's hear what we've got to think about.
Well, okay. I was looking at some of your material here. It says you've written 20 plus books. And I haven't read any of them. Yeah. I apologize because I just found out about you.
Yeah. It's interesting about being an author. And I think every author who starts that journey, imagines a bestseller and all those kind of accolades for your work. And the reality is, just like all other endeavors and industries in our life, you know, it's a tough road, and there's only a few who really make it to that level. But it's about the journey. So the experience, you know, if you can grow from your path, in my estimation, that's the reason, you know, we're here. That's what life is all about, is that growth. So finding the niche or the avenue for you to do that, you know, for me, that's where the success comes. It's not in the numbers of books. It's sort of in the people that, you know, you can touch with your work. And the great thing about living today is, with the internet and all the technology we have, you know, you don't have to have the book in your hand. You can just get it right electronically, and you're good to go. So, you know, it's all about increasing those numbers by increasing the impact on the reader.
Love what you're talking about, because there's, in any of this creative endeavor, and this is the case with myself too, is I'd be doing it whether I had 1 million people listening or one person. It's like you kind of have to do it. That's really what it is. It's like a calling that if you listen to that part of yourself and go, well, this is what I have to do anyway. So what's the difference what the outcome is? Because I'm going to do it whether it's huge numbers or little. And that's why I started doing this podcast, because I really like it. I just love meeting people like you and all the people I've had on. It's just so exciting to me. Every time I do an episode, I love it.
Podcasting is such a great venue because it allows us to reach out literally across the world and express and share some thoughts and some ideas and some realities. And for those of us on one side of the mic or the other, you know, I agree 100%. It's about that reach and that impact. And if it's one person or more, as long as the impact helps them in their lives, then we've accomplished what we've set out to do. And it's a hell of a lot of fun along the way.
Really is. I'm talking to somebody in the UK next week, and I've talked to people as far as Australia, UK. It's fantastic. I want to get a reach into South America and Germany and places like that. I haven't gotten to those countries yet, but it's kind of like traveling and meeting the best people in each of these places. Yeah. It's so cool. And I know what I wanted to ask you, because we were talking about aging before we started the recording, and you and I look like we're about the same age, and which would be in the last third of our lives. What kind of kid were you? Like, because obviously you're a seeker. I want to start with, like, and I'll just say about myself. I was curious and I wanted to find things out, and I thought that there was something that I wasn't being told, because people, they weren't hiding it. They just didn't know about it. Something, whatever it was. But that yearning to know what that was manifested in pleasure seeking and chaos and a lot of selfishness that I think comes with use, but it also came with me. That was I don't know what kind of kid you were. I'm interested, because people that pursue the path of a seeker, such as yourself, oftentimes have a struggle when they're younger.
I came from a very dysfunctional family. I think we all do to one degree or another. You know, childhood is a really interesting time of life, because you don't know anything, and you start to make, you know, some presumptions and assumptions about the world as you grow. I was a kid that was, I always embraced challenge, you know, maybe to a point where my mother said, "Are you ever going to hold a steady job?" kind of thing.
Sure.
But I grew up in the 50s and 60s, much like I'm sure you. And so that was a real different childhood than today. Not that it was any better, but it was certainly different. And, you know, I just kind of took challenges head on. I always thought, you know, I can do this, even if I didn't know what it was. Just the intrigue of you know, the try was important to me. And so I made a lot of mistakes and I had a lot of successes. And, I carried a lot of baggage that it took me a while to drop. But, that's what life is about for me, is for growth. And as long as I can continue to grow, then I can embrace both the positive and the negative in order to take from each of those, what they give me to be a better person.
Yeah, I was thinking about the when you were just talking about some of the things I believed as a kid that I later realized were just a belief that it wasn't necessarily true. And that's really in every category. When you think about what do I believe about money? Do only terrible people make a lot of money? Is money good or bad? Is it just energy that can be looked at either way? Things like how am I perceived by other people? They must think I'm X, Y, or Z, and they're not even. Yeah. The reality is they're not even thinking about me, but because they're thinking about them.
Exactly.
But
yeah, exactly.
But these things that rule us because we believe them are so powerful, and to be able to stand outside and look at that is really a huge, to me, is like a huge gift to be able to do that. Or first of all, to realize that maybe the things I've been told or that I believe or that I've told myself aren't true.
Yeah, all of those things. It's what is my reality, and that's what our life of experience is all about, proving whether our perceived reality is in fact what we are experiencing, or how do I make that so. So yeah, it's life is a great journey, lots of struggles, lots of things to learn about and overcome, but lots of blessings and rewards.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then in between those is incredible amount of mediocrity.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta do my laundry. That's the stuff that really kind of gets me sometimes. Well, boy, most of my time is not that exciting. But see, now that's not, how do we enjoy those things? That's the thing I kind of find interesting. It's like I'm doing laundry right now. The dryer's, I'm not doing it. The dryer is drying my clothes. Yeah. But I did wash them, and I moved them from the washer to the dryer right before we started talking. And I thought, this is like not that great, but it is great because I don't have to go to a river and wash it with rocks and stuff. But
yeah,
it really is. It's like, what'd you do today, Bob? Oh, I did my laundry, and it was just amazing. But those little tasks, to find the joy in the little tasks, is a real interesting thing, because that does take up most of our time. Is those sort of minutia of survival.
Yeah, those daily tasks that we might struggle with. I find that I live out in the woods, literally away from people, and I have animals, both domesticated and wild, out here. And as I walk around my yard, my chickens keep digging things up out of the ground. and I keep, picking up this debris to dispose of it. And I'll walk past it, for an hour or a day. And I finally think, nobody else is going to pick this up. So I go over and pick it up. And as soon as I get involved in the task, A, it's not so bad, and B, it allows me time to go somewhere else mentally. And that's where I get some of my greatest inspiration. And before I know it, the conversation in my head has ended, and completion of the task has also ended. And it really wasn't that bad. And the benefit that I got from that time that I had to give myself in order to complete the task really was a joy. And so then I go, that task wasn't so bad after all. I think I'll do the laundry again.
Exactly. It does take you out of the mind chatter to do a little task like that, sweep the floor, just any type of organizing or building or anything like that. Those very simple things shut down the mind chatter, which is usually about the projected tragedy of the future.
Exactly.
What's going to happen?
Yeah.
And more importantly, what's going to happen to me?
Yeah, that's the only question. Reality, what is going to happen to me? And then, what part of that do I have? If it's going to happen to me, can I make it or manifest it to be something that's really great for me? Self-reflection, and I guess that's what the value of that time alone is. That's where a lot of my creative triggers take place, is when I'm physically involved with something, but mentally detached from that task and just sort of thoughtfully floating to whatever, idea I want to dwell with for a moment. And it makes the menial tasks, it gives them a purpose that I get some value from. So I don't know what more I could ask for. I guess I'll go out and pick up some more trash.
Yeah, I had a thing. I don't know why I had this. I hated the task, absolutely hated the task of emptying the dishwasher and putting the dishes away. And I just, every time I thought about it, I would just bristle and I'd be like, what? I hate this. I don't know why I hate it. I mean, it's no worse or better than a lot of things. So I made a decision that I was going to empty the dishwasher better than anybody, that I was going to do a great job at it. So I got a towel, clean dish towel, and I took each thing out and I made sure it was really dry and I put it away carefully, and I decided to make it a ritualistic thing to do a great job, to be the best dish putter awayer ever. And it changed. I don't do that now, but it changed my my dislike of it to something that I kind of like now. It was an odd thing to do, but I was so churning about that task. I can't even tell you why. Who knows why you like something or you don't. But that was something I turned around by making it I guess the word would be doing it with some mindfulness.
I have the same kind of process when I do that. When I fold the laundry, right? I get it out finally after procrastinating, and I put it out on the chair and I say, okay, I'm going to fold 36 items. And that's all I'm going to fold. And so I start and I count. And, when I get to 36, I either have nothing left or only a handful of things left. And I just go ahead and finish the task. So it's sort of that same kind of challenge that you just alluded to, that I can do this. How can I do it so that I'm okay with it? I'm into it. And again, it's that completing the task isn't of itself a success, but it gives me time to think about other things at the same time. So I tell my wife I'm going into multitask now.
I remember this quote that I heard from, I think is Gabor Mate. You know who that guy is? He's very popular.
I don't.
I don't know where he got this quote, but the quote was, I think it's the thing in the way of the task is the task.
Yeah.
So I thought, that's sort of what we were just talking about. Maybe the title of this episode will be The Power of Folding Laundry. That could be a good title for this one. And people will go, what is it? What are they talking about?
Yeah. 2 men at the laundromat.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's, I love talking about this kind of sort of in between stuff that's, it's dancing around the bigger question, but it is also part of it too. It's how do you live? How do you enjoy moments when they're not exciting, when they're not heightened or even, depressing? To enjoy that middle part is really, because that's where we spend most of our time. So I like that. I want to talk about one of the topics that is on your one sheet here that I got sent. And it just says relationship repair. And obviously probably the most difficult thing, at least for me, is, and the most important thing is my relationships with other people, and that's usually where the difficulties are in my life, is dealing with somebody else, particularly somebody that you live with, is very challenging and very wonderful. It's both of those things. And the tendency to notice the things you don't like tend to grow if you're not really aware of what that you're doing that. And that's where I think a lot of conflict comes, is the focus on you did this or you didn't do this, and I don't like that, and this impinges on my freedom, and and vice versa. So when you talk about relationship repair, how do you approach that, and how do you talk about that?
Well, all the things you just said are so true. Life is about relationships, and healthy relationships have balance and they have growth. And so balance is that stability for us as individuals between our mind, body, soul, and spirit. And growth is the process or the action that we encounter and experience, when we move into a new choice or decision based on recall of the previous or similar situation and its outcome. So with all of that said, relationships are continually tested on a daily basis, and the people that we are most in contact with at home, at work, are the relationships that get tested. And so there's a process, when we hit a problem area or an issue, and those emotions of angst come up with one or both parties or more parties involved. Most of the time what happens is one of us does something that upsets the other one, right? Like you described. And in that moment of angst and unhealthy thoughts, we often tend to say or do something that causes recrimination, or then we get into that argument stage or that conflict stage with whoever it might be. And so when that happens, when we get through that part of the process, then usually one or the other wants to apologize, and it goes something like, I'm sorry, please forgive me, let's move on. Depending upon the impact and the depth of the hurt or the harm that's been perpetrated, it may not be that easy, to get over the moment. And so because that's the normal kind of interplay, I did something, I'm sorry, please forgive me, let's move on, like it never happened. A lot of times people go in that direction, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. A lot of times people may go in that direction, but the hurt is still there. And so there can't be healing. There is a process that people can go through, a step-by-step process to try and repair the damage and get to that reconciliation point. But because most people don't know what the process is, they don't know how to go about it. So we're stuck in that cycle of hurt, forgiveness, move on cycle without ever really getting to the crux to the matter and trying to fix the problem.
What is the process then that we can do? Because that really is a very common pattern, what you just described.
Well, it's 7 easy steps, not easy, but easy to remember and do. But before you do the steps, there's actually 3 levels of pain that occur when these kinds of interactions that bring negative outcomes happen to us, right, in our relationships. The first one is the pain of the manifested action. Okay, I cheated on my wife, right? And that action is not only causing her pain, it's now causing me pain as well. The second level of pain is the betrayal level. And the deepest level, or third level, is the breach of trust level. And we have to repair all three of those levels, or the chances of repair is not going to be successful. So knowing there's pain of what I did, there's pain in the betrayal, and there's pain in the breach of trust, all three of those have to be addressed. And it's always the breach of trust that's the core problem. We can get over the action and we can forgive enough to get over the betrayal. But that breach of trust goes so deep that that's the one that has to be ultimately repaired for reconciliation. So here's the 7 steps. I've harmed somebody. The first thing I have to do is recognize that I caused harm. Upon recognition, then I have to take responsibility for my actions. When I've taken responsibility, I can then address the feelings of regret that I have and the feelings of remorse that I have. The 5th one is redress. I have to come up with a viable solution that you will accept in the process. The 6th step is repetition. I have to agree that that action can never happen again in the future. And the 7th step is repentance. And this is where forgiveness takes place. If I repent, then I merit forgiveness for it. If I don't repent, then obviously I'm not interested in really making my amends and changing. Most people think of repentance in a religious frame of reference, and the fact is, repentance means change in future behavior. So not only have I vowed to myself and to you not to repeat that action or that behavior again, unless I truly change and don't go to that place again, then I haven't repented and I don't merit forgiveness. Now, 2 quick things. Both people have to agree before going into the process of the 7 steps that they will try to complete the process. And then the second thing is, we have to sit down and agree to come from that loving place that we once knew when we first became, together as a couple. And we have to agree to be vulnerable and really tell the other person our true feelings. And there's the real rub, is that in many cases, the quote that comes out is, well, I didn't tell you because I didn't want to hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
And yet this is the party or the person that we have pledged ourselves to in a bond of trust. And that's the person I should be able to tell every feeling in secret to. And yet we hold back and start digging that hole deeper. But there are those 7 steps. And if the couple or the parties are willing to go through them, coming out the other end, there's, more chance for successful reconciliation. Will that seedling of mistrust be displaced? Only the party who has that feeling knows that answer.
It seems like that would be such a tricky, particularly the example you use, which is a severe, breach of trust, that almost couldn't be done just with the 2 people. You need an objective third party to kind of guide something like that, because the potential for emotional blow-ups is just off the charts.
I couldn't agree more. You in those kind of situations, professional help or clinical help is definitely merited for consideration. I'm simply giving these 7 steps as a process that you can go through or attempt to go through with or before or after you get professional help. But it gives you steps to go beyond that. I'm sorry, forgive me, let's move on.
Yeah.
That's a remedy for disaster. These 7 steps at least put you on a path or help you start a path where you can start talking, maybe just about who we are now in our lives as opposed to going right into the action or the manifestation that's causing the problem. It gives people a process to start. But yeah, I would never discount nor tell, people not to seek professional help. That's what they're there for.
Yeah. See, the thing that would be, I guess, the most frightening is that if both people are really honest, then maybe they get to the point where they go, we probably shouldn't be doing this anymore. And that's a really
Exactly.
frightening thing when there's been, decades of habit or entanglement and entwinement of the root structure.
Bob, here's the situation. We get ourselves into that place, right? And in Life 101, that's the cycle we go through. In Life 101A, we realize that something has happened that is destructive, and we agree to terminate and move on. The choice becomes, do I tell you up front in the next 2 minutes what I've done and what I think the possible remedies are,
Mm-hmm.
or do I hold it in and go through the normal behavior that we go through and withhold it and drag myself and both of us through a mountain of muck for who knows how long until the actual termination or reconciliation point comes to be? That's the only question. Am I adult and tell you up front and we figure out what to do next, whatever that looks like? Or do we go through this dance and this game where we make each other miserable and continue the deceit and the deception to a point where it comes to be so harsh that one of us can't take it anymore and finally, it blows up and it's over? How much muck do I want to drag myself through? Am I willing to be personally responsible for my actions and those consequences, no matter what they may be, and let's get it out on the table and get it over with? Or do we continue uncomfortable miserableness for who knows how long until that same termination point comes to pass? And that's, to me, is it difficult? You better believe it's difficult. But the loving thing, in my estimation, is, the most loving thing I can do is to bring it to light and bring it to finality as quickly as possible. Will you hate me or dislike me or whatever negative feelings you have? Sure, that's a given. We're human. I've been down both paths, and the easier path is come from the truth immediately, get the situation resolved somehow, and move on. Believe me, if you do that, you can at least part at some point in the future with some form of friend feeling, as opposed to revenge and hate, which you drag to the next relationship and the next relationship, and that cycle continues. And then we have, a world full of dysfunctional people and dysfunctional relationships because, well, I didn't want to hurt your feelings, and that's why I did all these things and lied to you about it. Okay.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to hurt your feelings and get yelled at and be in trouble is really what it is.
Yeah. Well, here we are back in childhood.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. But I like that you're talking about telling the truth, which sometimes is really hard to do because of the direct consequence and immediate consequence. So I was just talking to a friend of mine last weekend, and he said this was a great analogy. I thought. He goes, there's if you picture like a big ocean liner, and it hits an iceberg, and everything gets tossed into the ocean, and the piano is floating on the water, and you swim to that piano and you hold on to it. He goes, I like to see myself as my relationship with the truth. Holding on to that piano for dear life, because that's the whatever that truth is. And I like that image of being a sea and just holding on to the truth, because that's all there is. Not easy to do, of course.
It's only hard to hold on to the truth when you refuse to live the truth. Yeah, that's one of the big questions of life. What is truth, and what is my truth? And are they the same? So what is the truth? When we discover in our lives the truth of life, then you have an opportunity or an option to live that way. And when you decide to live that way truthfully, not only with yourself, but with your world, all of a sudden, all the pressure, all the stress, all the struggle is eliminated, because that negative energy will go somewhere else. It will only, be with you if you allow it to be. And if you are truthful, then you immediately know what is not truth. And you don't have to have it in your life any longer.
It also makes decision making much simpler. Does this resonate with my truth? If it's no, then don't do it. I guess. But I want the results.
Well, that's the dichotomy of life. That's our humanness, human interest coming out, as opposed to is there anything else? And of course there is. There's the human me and there's the spiritual me. Because we both exist, we both get some airtime or some playtime. But unless there's a reward or a blessing or a positive outcome, I probably won't want to go there. So that's that balance that we're always searching for in life. That's what it's all about. How do I get balance so that I can be a better person, a better me, a better husband, a better father, a better wife, a better employee? How can I be a better contributor to my world? And we can do it by understanding truth, knowing truth, and living truthfully. You said it. It takes all the pressure off. It relieves the load. That's what experiential growth is all about. I've got a decision to make. There's an outcome. I'm going to make the decision. Is it of my best interest and benefit to me as a person and all of my roles or not? And when I can make the decision and go immediately to that outcome and manifest that to come to pass, then I've reduced that struggle and that time between choice and action. And when I come from the truth, I always know the best outcome. And therefore, I can experience it not in a day or 2 days or 3 weeks or 6 years from now. I can experience it as soon as it's implemented. And by knowing the truth, we also know the lies and the falsehoods. It's like somebody in an abused relationship, right? We all innately know what loving relationship and loving behavior looks like. And likewise, we know what unloving behavior looks like. We've all experienced it some point in our life. And so as soon as we are experiencing it, whether it be loving or unloving behavior, we immediately know. And if we know truth and we know what is happening in our lives and what we feel, then we have an avenue to rectify it or to move on.
Another part of the truth that I think is difficult for people is that it requires a certain amount of responsibility, which requires a lot of effort and a lot of mindfulness to stay responsible. And, as humans, sometimes we want to just be lazy. It's like, well, I don't want to do that. That's the kind of responsibility and so by not taking the responsibility, then you're not living truthfully, and then you're diminishing, you're sort of chipping away at your spirit, and then you're less truthful, and it just sort of spirals into something that is inauthentic, I guess. But I wonder what it is that makes some people understand how important responsibility is, and some people just don't seem to grasp the value in that particular word. I mean, a lot of these podcasts I do keeps coming back to that when we talk about personal growth and people, accomplishing or getting what they want, not necessarily things, but, all things in life, that responsibility is a big part of it, and action.
Yeah, the biggest part of it, other than insecurity, taking responsibility is what it's all about. That's the first action step to becoming an adult, right? most people, when we fail, the first thing we want to do is get away from that hole, that feeling, that indictment of ourselves. And yet, a lot of times that's where the growth can take place. We just don't know that. But we live in a time, in a society that bombards us since our earliest moments of recognition to think and respond in certain, predetermined ways. And when we know how to respond differently, we understand that blaming someone else or making an excuse really doesn't help get us any farther down that path. And so once we discover, if I take responsibility for it, whether the outcome be good or bad or ugly, then I've taken the responsibility that I am responsible for. And again, that relieves that pressure, that relieves that guilt, that relieves that embarrassment. And we find out that, going to the principal's office didn't turn out to be as bad as I thought it was going to be, by owning up to what I did. And now I've just accomplished something very important for myself. I have shown myself that I can overcome something that is challenging me, maybe for all the wrong reasons, maybe only reasons that I've conjured up in my own head. By coming from the truth, by taking responsibility for my success or my failure, I've grown. And therein lies the lesson, is that when I take responsibility for what I've done, the downside is not as bad as I thought it was going to be in most cases, depending on the intensity and what my harm was. But it allows me to continue to grow. That, we all make mistakes. We all screw up. We all fumble and foil. And, we all do things that we wish we hadn't or are regretful for and wish that we could change them. Well, that's how we change them in the future. We don't go to that place anymore because we immediately have taken responsibility for what we've done. We haven't made excuses. We haven't tried to blame someplace else or someone else. And we move on. People are people. We understand when you screw up. That's the thing we want to see, is we want to see you admit to the failure. And okay, now let's find a solution and move on. But you got to be, you have to be willing to self-reflect. How am I going to handle the situation? We, again, innately know that the deeper we dig that hole, the longer it goes, the worse we allow it to become, or the worse we make it, that at the end, the light is still going to shine. The truth is still going to be told. People are going to perceive me for what I've allowed myself to look like. And that's, somebody who won't take responsibility for my decisions or my choices. Yeah, that's where the consequences come. Yeah.
Yeah. And the idea of blame is really an interesting one, because I have a tendency to go to blame pretty quick. My ego just was like, well, it can't be me, so it's got to be them. So that's one of my core kind of the struggles in life, and I'm better at it than I've ever been, because just a lot of practice. But the idea of the idea of failure is an interesting one, because if you really look at it, maybe there is kind of no such thing. It's just a learning experience. I had this. I took these acting classes many years ago, and you go in and you do these exercises in the acting class, and the teacher said, he goes, you come in here and you fail. This is after he sort of criticized somebody or corrected them or helped them. Because then you come back next week and you fail again. And then you come back next week and you fail again, and you keep coming in here and you fail your way to success. And I loved that he said that, because it made it very simple to realize that that's just, fail. Is it failure, or is it just a learning process? Because you're not born knowing how to do anything other than breathe and eat. And that's not really knowing, that's just instinctual, So everything that we do is learned in a sense. So of course there were mistakes. Watch a kid try to walk, they fall down. They don't care. They don't feel bad about themselves. They're intrigued by it.
Yeah. Yep. Practice, practice, practice. We live in an age where we expect instantaneous gratification or instantaneous success. And the point is, what's the fun in that? Where is the joy of falling down and getting up? Where is the impactful self-reassurance of, what did Edison say? I now know 999 ways not to make a light bulb, right? It's practice, practice, practice. And too many people give up. When we were kids, it was, if at first you don't succeed, try again. And after coming through the AYSO, everybody gets a trophy generation. It's like, oh, I failed. Oh, boo-hoo. I can't handle rejection. I'm going to go off and sit in the corner and sulk and, deal with my mental health issues that I'm causing myself. It's just crazy. You're right. We are born knowing nothing. So, how many times do you fail driving tests because you can't parallel park?
Yeah.
Well,
it's always the big one.
Sooner or later, you practice and practice and practice until you can parallel park.
But how gratifying is anything if it comes too easy? Like if somebody said to you, hey, Branch, I could make you the greatest singer in the world. You don't have to do anything. No work, no effort, no struggle. Would you take that offer? Because I wouldn't take that offer. I would say, no. I don't want to just be able to do that. That's not right. That doesn't feel good. It's too easy.
Well, that's what all reality shows are about. When you discover life and you discover what life is about, then you understand it's a journey. It's about the experiences. It's not about instantaneous, a million followers or whatever your marker of success is. If it was, then people with, means wouldn't keep wanting more. They want another house, a bigger car, more. If their life was fulfilling in reality for them enough that they were satisfied with their daily existence and what they give to the world in exchange for what they get from the world, we wouldn't have this age of celebrity and struggle and, it's all about me no matter who I have to crush. It's that's one philosophy and direction of life. Okay, I once was on that path and have lots of regrets and incriminations for it. It didn't work for me, so I changed my course. And in changing course, I discovered that the house I live in is big enough and the car that gets me from A to B works. I've got my energies go to different things now. That's all. And it's time to give back to the world after the 40 years that I took from the world.
Well, that's a beautiful thing. And some of that comes with, the wisdom or the experience of aging and seeing that stuff doesn't really work long-term inside. You don't feel that much better. Like when you talk about cars, my friend says, there's only two kinds of cars, running and not running. Those are the only two kinds.
Yeah.
There's two questions that I like to ask myself. How free do I want to be, unencumbered from these things that are really dragging me down and not satisfying me? And how's that working for me, whatever it is I'm doing or thinking? And if I can answer those questions in a way that is satisfying, then I keep doing them, or I don't.
Yeah, the more possessions I have, the more I am possessed, because I have a responsibility to all of those things. and I become encumbered. The more stuff I've got, the more encumbered I become. And at some point, that realization takes hold, and then choices are made, and you start decluttering your life. And as soon as you can start to do it with the physical things, you start to understand that you can also do it with the mental and the emotional and the psychological things. That's what meditation is all about, getting back to that essence core spot, whether it's prayers or meditation or whatever the vehicle, yoga, whatever the vehicle may be, puts you one with yourself. And then you can be one with the world. And then you understand that there's two parts of the world. There's the physical world, the mortal world, and then there's the spiritual world. And when I understand that there are two parts, and both of those parts are already me, then I need to help both of those parts grow to be all they can be. And once I understand that, and I get that balance started between the human me and the spiritual me, then I become more complete. And in that completeness, I become a better partner and a better, father and a better parent and a better grandparent. I become a better person because I'm balanced now. There's a balance to who I am. Therefore, there's a balance to what I can offer and what I can give.
You think anybody under the age of 30 can have those realizations? It must be rare.
Well, you know what? I think there's a lot of people at every age who have those revelations, but we're buried from early childhood under layers and layers of the world and the world's ways. That's what we grow up knowing, and that's what we're comfortable with. Even in our misery and our uncomfortableness, that's what we know. So that's what we grasp and hold on to. In each of us, there's a seedling somewhere in our subconscious telling us that there is more and there's something different and there's another option. At what point in life do we make that recognition and take action to make that so? It's different for everybody. It's there because we know it's there because it happens to us. Gratefully for those who get it young, they have that many more years to explore it. But what happens is along the way in our teens and 20s and 30s, we've been conditioned to this world and the things of this world. And until the veil can be lifted and we can see that those ambitions and those goals really didn't fulfill me as I thought they might, then the doors cracked open, the light comes through, and we can go as far as we want to go.
I had this thought of two thoughts. One was a healthy society. In a healthy society, there are no storage facilities.
My wife is the operations manager for 11 self-storage facilities.
Oh, well, she's not going to care for my statement, but she'll probably laugh.
No, you are so correct.
It's so funny.
She yeah.
Well, she's lucky.
Crazy.
She's lucky she lives here, that she can have a job like catering to people's emptiness. Anytime you can make money off somebody else's pain. So here's the other one. There's two things wrong with money. Two things wrong with money: not enough and too much.
Much.
When the people with too much think it's not enough.
Yeah, it's we are victims of our own success,
Which brings me to kind of the idea of the role of having a sense of humor about the dilemma that we find ourselves in being human beings. I have found that is, for me, a huge piece of the way that I have to live in order to feel good. It's like I find the irony and the dichotomy and all this stuff pretty damn funny. It's like, it's, the cosmic joke or whatever it is. And when I am laughing, I am so in the moment and I feel so good, and I love laughing with other people. I just it's always been that way. I had a grandfather who was like that, and I was very, very close to him. He died when I was 16, which was, I was a kid, but still, that worldview that he radiated was so impactful to me as a child. He saw every, the world that way. And he was a serious guy. He was a carpenter, and he raised a family, and he did what he had to do to survive, but he always had that glint in his eye of, don't take it that seriously because it's a little bit of a joke. And I feel blessed that guy was my grandfather.
Yeah. I get up every morning and look in the mirror and I say, you're not all that. And, you can tell, well, life, both love and hate radiate. And we're drawn to people who are loving life, who are smiling, who are happy. Nobody wants to be with somebody that's a downer. That's why you don't get invited to the parties anymore. That negative energy is just too great. And here again, that's a choice. So, if we're willing to look at the lightheartedness of life and not take everything so seriously, then we can enjoy those moments. And the key then is, of course, to make those moments more moments, and build upon those, laugh when it's funny and make other people laugh. Or, that's, again, truth. I can't say it enough. That relieves all of that extraneous pressure and that stress. And you can be a little more of who you really want to be instead of who you think you need to be to the world. Put the mask down, take a breath, relax, and enjoy the beauty around you and in the people around you. Look for the good. That's what I try to do. Even when I'm really having an issue with somebody, I try and look for the good that I know is in there.
That's somebody who's probably in a lot of pain, or they wouldn't be acting that way. So there's a compassion piece to it. Even though you can't stand the way they're acting, that they're hurting somewhere, and that's not an easy thing to do, to overlook. But it's it is sort of the ultimate arrival to live with kindness and compassion. I'm somewhat successful at it, and sometimes not so much. I just remembered that this was the most negative comment I've ever heard that made me laugh really hard. A friend of mine, I wasn't there. A friend of mine went on a blind date with this woman, and she was really negative and not very fun. And they're at a concert, and the band ends a song, and people are clapping, and he looks, she's not clapping. He goes, don't you like the band? She goes, well, they're okay. It just hurts when I clap. We were laughing so hard. I go, what a downer. Who would say that? It hurts when I clap. Do you have some sort of a injury on your palm? I mean, it's just like, it was where she was saying was, I don't like to express joy because it's painful. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I don't have to live with her.
No, I got her number if you want it. Well, I really appreciate talking to you today, Branch. I could do this for many more hours if I didn't have other stuff I got to do. Laundry, namely. Thanks so much. Let's how can people get a hold of you and buy your books? Because that's important too.
Oh, thanks a lot. I'm easy. Everything's in my name, Branch Isole. Branch like a tree. Isole, Isole. I've got a website. I've got a YouTube channel. If you missed some of the really important things that we didn't talk about today, go to the website, click on the link that says podcast, and there'll be some show notes there. just Google my name, Branch Isole. That'll get you to all the things I've written and shared, and love to have you comment.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much. You have a beautiful day, and I will send you the episode when it's finished. And best of luck on the books and all the great work you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob. It's been a real pleasure. I haven't had this much fun on a podcast in a long time.
Oh, good. I'm happy to hear that. Appreciate you folks listening to The Exploding Human. Check out the website, theexplodinghuman.com. The YouTube channel, The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman, and The Exploding Human Facebook page. I want to thank Branch Isole for being my guest today. Please check him out on the internet. Have a wonderful day. Thanks so much.